That's how it started. I went to a 3-day retreat. The last day we're at a place called Meditation Mountain. And Jason came to me, he's like, so I've been observing you, I got 2 questions for you. I said, all right, cool. He said, first question is, what would you do if you weren't so afraid? Or what would you do if money wasn't an issue and you were so afraid about that? I thought, and he said, and what would you do if you didn't care so much about what other people thought of you? So I thought, I said, well, this thing called fatherhood, man, I do this. This is
What was it? Called what?
fatherhood. That's how we say it.
Is there a W in that?
Yeah, F-A-W.
Okay. Fatherhood.
Fatherhood. That's right. We don't.
Okay. All right. I wasn't
don't
sure.
know how they.
I didn't know if we were talking about fatherhood or something
what
different.
is that? No, fatherhood.
Fatherhood.
Yeah, fatherhood.
Okay, all right.
Say it right. All right. So I said this thing called fatherhood is like, I do this every day. I love it. There's nothing I love more. And I said, in the most humble, kind of New York kind of way, I said, and this thing coaching you're doing, I think you're good, but I think I could probably be better. And he looked at me and he laughed. He said, so go build a business around that. And I was like, what? Build a business around the things you love? He's like, yeah.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am Chris Doris, your host, and today we had a really special, actually it wasn't today, it was yesterday, but this episode was really special, and I'm really pumped to share it with you. Our guest is a repeat guest here on Tough Talks. His name is Devon Bandison, and he's a best-selling author of this phenomenal, don't you fall down, amazing book. Wrong side. This is all totally rehearsed, okay? Every bit of this is on purpose, okay? A trained professional. So yeah, Fatherhood is Leadership. This is an incredible book. That's Devon and his 3 amazing kids. Highly recommend the book. We don't even talk about the book. I didn't show it at all. So here's the plug. Fatherhood is Leadership. I'm telling you, it's not just for dads. This is an amazing book. Devon is an incredible storyteller. Now, Devon has become one of my very best friends in the world over the past several years. Met him, of course, through the coaching world. And, Devon is maybe like the person that I know in the world who has created more success for himself in less time than maybe anyone that I've ever known. I can't prove that, but I can't prove it wrong either, because I mean, he's demolishing it, and in every conceivable way, including but sure as hell not limited to financially. And the reason is that he's going to talk about it, or we did talk about it. I'm recording this. We had a film crew in here yesterday, and we recorded it live, and they broke it down, and it went way late, and so I'm doing this the next day. So there won't be any outro. This is the introduction and the outroduction as well. But we talked about, you'll hear him talk about being, starting with being as opposed to doing or having, right? And how we've all been conditioned to get that backwards, that when I have this, then I can, like when I have money, I can be financially secure, right? Or feel successful. When X is true in my life in the external world, then I have permission to be X in the internal world, like successful, right? Or competent, or expert, or fulfilled, or happy. So he's gonna school us up on that. One of the things that I would love for you to see if you could do as you experience him, and I say that as opposed to just listen to him, is because in addition to the content of what Devon shares, I really would love, I think it would be so valuable for you, because I know sure as hell is for me, to experience the guy's vibe. I know for a fact that some people think he's very lucky. Devon is not lucky. In fact, I love when I asked him about luck in the interview. You know, he gave a really, really cool definition of luck. And he doesn't think of himself as lucky. I mean, what the hell? His whole life is, these days is about creating excellence. Is about, is creating life. You create your life, and he's become an incredible role model. Now, I'll wrap it up with this, and then we'll get to to the interview. If you're not following this guy on social, do it. Mark my words. I'm recording this on March 16th of 2021. I don't know when this is going to air because the film crew's got to do their editing and stuff, but I wanted to record this while it was real fresh in my mind. I'm telling you right now, follow this guy. Follow him on Facebook. Follow him on Instagram. Right? He's going to be, and of course his website devonbandison.com. He's got an incredible event. Look up the Game Changer. Check that out because that's growing. The Game Changer experience is a 3-day experience or 2.5 day long experience. Perfect name. It's a game changer. He does it on the East Coast in New York. He does it on the West Coast in LA. He's going to be doing one in the UK in the next year or so. But I'm telling you right now, follow him. I am 100% convinced. A, that I could finish the sentence, and B, that he's going to be creating some serious miracles. I mean, this man is riding a wave, and he just keeps elevating. At the end of yesterday, he had a very complete day. I start this interview off kind of stupid. I don't know if they edited it out. I'm not going to ask him to, but I said something like, "Hey, you've had quite a day," because he did. And then I got elusive, and I said, "We won't get really into that." So it's sort of a dumb tease, but it's he. Let me just put it this way. Devon is always investing in himself, like profoundly. I maybe don't know anybody that sharpens his saw as regularly. Yeah, I probably know a couple of people that do it but also powerhouses. Very few. Constantly sharpening his saw, right? Developing himself, reading books. He stayed here and he's got like tons of books that he brings with him. He only brings a backpack to travel, like 2 pieces of clothes and like 90 books, because he's just constantly, he is infinitely committed to service. So he's investing in himself in profound ways. And he's on a journey now where it really doesn't make it easy for me to say this. I'm not going out on a limb. He's going to be creating some serious miracles in the next year and beyond. So follow him up. I promise you, your life will be better for that. All right. Enjoy the episode, the interview. And finally, if you're not getting notified of these new Tough Talks episodes, which come out every other Thursday, if you're not getting notified of my weekly blog posts, which come out on Tuesdays, and if you're not getting your daily dose of mental toughness in 30 seconds or less every single morning at 6 a.m., wherever you are in the world, then let's correct that by going to ChristopherDoris.com/lists, LISTS, name, email, click, bam, and you're going to get all the goodies. All right, folks, enjoy my boy, Little Boogie. That's his nickname. My man.
CD.
DB, Little Boogie. Devon Bandison. Welcome back. It's good to have you in the captain's quarters, man.
It feels good being here, man. Congrats on the success of the show.
Oh, I appreciate that. So today's an interesting day for you.
Yeah.
We don't need to necessarily talk too much about what's going on already in this day, but it's a big day for you.
Big day.
Yeah, how you feeling?
I'm feeling excited to be here. I'm feeling fantastic and a little discombobulated all at the same time.
Oh, sure.
It's been a great day.
Yeah. So you and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where you really caught my attention. And we came up with a little mantra from that conversation. I'm wondering if we could explore that today. The mantra was, or is,
Normalize the Miraculous.
Normalize the Miraculous.
Yeah.
So why don't you take us through, where did that come from? What was the story that you were telling me?
Yeah, you had asked me about my start in the coaching profession.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when we talk, because we have a little history, and before we both got into coaching, we have like a little bit of a similar history. And I think that from that conversation of normalizing, of me entering the coaching profession and how it transpired, in many ways it was miraculous, and we got to a deeper conversation about like that's kind of how miraculous rolls, right? It's a normalization. It's like we have been taught that miraculous is somewhere outside of us instead of just our natural state of being, which is miraculous. So the story, I started out before I got into coaching. I was, in the social work field, similar to you, and it was great work. Had about $2 over lunch money, but I was loving what I was doing, And my job was to go into the homes of what they used to call at-risk youth, and I quickly changed their name to At Hope Youth. And,
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So I was in this field, and during the time, there was like a turning point in my life. We all have these crucible moments in our life where things happen, whether it's death or divorce, and I had a lot of that going on all at once. Okay. And this was during the time where I was in what I was calling a difficult divorce. And because I'm from New York, man, right? We just know difficult divorces. This is not like when I went to California and they used to call it conscious uncoupling, you know what I'm saying? So this is, difficult because it's difficult. And at the same time, I had been promoted at my job, better job, Midtown Manhattan, more money. About 5 minutes into the job, I realized it was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life.
Why?
Because it wasn't working with the children and families again, and it was a toxic environment. So I was kind of operating for the first time in what Steve Chandler says, victim mindset. Pressing the snooze button, not wanting to go to work. Yeah,
That's hard for me to imagine that, man.
Yeah,
that's not you. That's not the you I know.
That's right. I mean, and that was just a choice, a creation, man. And so I just so happened to run into, I was also big into leadership, and I really wasn't in coaching yet, but they had trainings at this job, and I went to this organizational development training. A guy named Jason, who's used to work for a guy named David Allen, came and did a training, and basically, he saw me, I participated at lunch, and he was like, hey man, Devon, something about you. And I'm going through a lot at this time, CD, so I'm like skeptical New Yorker, like, what's this California guy talking about something about me, right? And so he said, no, let's stay in touch. And so we stayed in touch. He sent me his book, and he sent me this invite to a place, and he emailed me, I want you to come to this place called OJAI, California.
How's that pronounced?
Well, at the time, I thought it was pronounced OJ, right? But I've evolved since that point, And what was funny was I'm going through this divorce. At the time, my thinking was more in what I don't have, like a scarce kind of mindset, which is she's gonna take everything, I'm gonna lose it all. I'm gonna eat ramen noodles the rest of my life, and not like in Scottsdale you guys go for ramen. No, I mean like the little packets of ramen noodles, right? And so that's kind of where I was operating. I share that because it's easy, I think that people share like where they are and like the 4-hour work week, but they don't tell you about the years of like when they weren't operating on their highest, when they weren't at the top of the ladder of consciousness. So for me, it's important to share like, hey, this was miraculous in and of itself because it was so simple and ordinary. Okay. So I'm at this point, he invites me, and finally I'm like, first day I wake up, I'm like, he waived the fee, but I'm still thinking I don't want to pay for a ticket.
Hold on, I want to ask a clarification. I want to slow this down a bit because this guy invited you to go to an event.
A retreat, yeah.
A retreat.
3-day retreat.
In Ojai.
In Ojai.
Okay.
So,
all right, now, did you have any insight into what this retreat was about?
No, he did a training at the organization.
So it's kind of the same.
Yeah, I thought it was like a maybe personal development. I really wasn't in the world. I read some books at the time, but it wasn't like this was my first invite to something.
And at the time, what is your job at this point?
I'm either a manager or director of at of children's services at this nonprofit.
And did you have any vision as to what, professionally speaking, you wanted to have happen for you at this stage?
No,
So coaching was not on your radar yet. I'm just clarifying the story, just to get to where you're at. So you're just thinking, all right, I'm a social worker, or I'm in social work.
Yep. And I want something more. There's something more.
Okay, so that was there.
That was something with more, but I didn't know what that was.
But there was a want.
There was a want.
Well, I think that's probably pretty important.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So there's a want, and I'm in a crucible moment where I'm like, I don't like showing up to work.
What do you mean by crucible moment?
Crucible is like, for me, is like when the rubber hits the road. It's kind of like when what you've been experiencing inside, where it's like, I'm not happy, I want something different, meets an opportunity where you make a choice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so to me, that's what a crucible is. And so I'm in this moment, and I had no idea. He invited me, and I said, well, it took me 4 days, and every day I'm making an excuse why I'm not gonna go out there. It's short notice, so it's da-da-da. So finally, 4 days later, after going through this, I just have a thought that if I don't do this, I may regret it. So I pick up the phone. He told me this place called the Lavender Inn in OJAI, California. And I need to tell you, like, the Lavender Inn, it was nice in California, but in New York, if it's a place called the Lavender Inn, they probably charge by the hour, right? So I'm still like, I'm still a little skeptical, right? Like, so I call the Lavender Inn. I'm excited. I say, hey, this is Devon from New York. It's my first time in OJ. And the woman just starts,
yes.
laughing.
And you were dead serious.
Dead serious. And she laughs at me, and she says, hey, Devon, you sound like a nice guy. OJ's that guy we don't talk about out here. This is Ojai. So I was like, all right. So coming to Ojai, I go to Ojai, and that's how it started. I went to a 3-day retreat. The last day, we're at a place called Meditation Mountain. And Jason came to me, he's like, so I've been observing you. I got 2 questions for you. So, all right, cool. He said, first question is, what would you do if you weren't so afraid? Or what would you do if money wasn't an issue and you were so afraid about that? I thought, and he said, and what would you do if you didn't care so much about what other people thought of you? So I thought, I said, well, this thing called fatherhood, man, I do this. This is
what was it? Called what?
Fatherhood. That's how we say it.
Is there a W in that?
Yeah, F-A-W.
Okay. Fatherhood.
Fatherhood. That's right. We don't.
Okay. All right. I wasn't
I don't
sure.
know how they.
I didn't know if we were talking about fatherhood or something
what
different.
Is that? No, fatherhood.
Fatherhood.
Yeah, fatherhood.
Okay. All right.
Say it right. All right. So I said, this thing called fatherhood is like, I do this every day. I love it. There's nothing I love more. And I said, in the most humble, kind of New York kind of way, I said, and this thing coaching you're doing, I think you're good, but I think I could probably be better. And he looked at me and he laughed. He said, so go build a business around that. And I was like, what? Build a business around the things you love? He's like, yeah. So I got home from Ojai.
So wait, so that suggestion from him seemed unusual to you? Like to go build a business around something that you absolutely love?
Yeah, because up until that time, it was like, I played college basketball, got a scholarship, and went to school, got my master's degree, was in kind of the hamster wheel, and didn't have the space in between kind of my life to slow down and really look at like what did I really want. It was like glimpses. It was fleeting glimpses that would come that we all go through, right? We know something's up, but do we slow down to really look at it? So there wasn't
No, can I just
yeah.
Because when you say slow down, that this is an aside, but just for a second, because that is the most lucrative lesson that I've ever learned from Steve Chandler.
Yeah.
Lucrative.
Yeah. Big time.
Now, there's value in slowing down in a multitude of values.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, slowing down has been the most lucrative move or discipline that I've practiced and integrated. So
100%. Well, let's stay there for a minute, right? So slowing down, my favorite quote from Warren Buffett is that busy is the new stupid. Like he says no 95% of the time, and busy is the new stupid. The guy reads like 8 hours a day.
Wow.
So when I hear slow down and I can see how it's lucrative, like I had been going through the hamster wheel, right? Like I just been showing up for work, doing some great work, being of service, helping the community, but like never questioning what I wanted.
Never slowing down to ask yourself a question.
Yeah.
Like, what would perfect look like for me vocationally?
That's right. So slow down, like the best analogy for me is like a 10-speed bike. Because when I heard slow down as a New Yorker, that's like blasphemous, man. Like what I hear from, as a New Yorker of slow down, it's like going slow. Or it means I'm going to lose momentum. Mm-hmm. But we're not talking about that level of slowing down. What I'm talking about, like as a 10-speed bike, oftentimes at that moment in my life, I was in a 1-1 gear. I was just, when your bike's in a 1-1 gear, legs are moving fast, but you're not really going too far. So to me, slowing down is when you upgrade those pedal strokes, you upgrade those questions you're asking yourself. Now I'm in a 4-6 gear where my legs are going slower, but my momentum's taking me further.
You really know your 10-speed gear lingo. That's very impressive, actually.
Thank you. And I only had like a mongoose, so that's even more impressive. So, man, so that's where I was. I finally slowed down in Meditation Mountain. That actual question slowed me down to think. And I came up with, fatherhood and coaching. He said, build a business around that. And it really hit home. I got home. I looked at the calendar.
What were the questions again? Because that's pretty important. Like this is like a pivotal moment in your life.
Yeah.
So those two questions.
Yeah, it was like two and 2A questions. So it was like, what would you do if you weren't so concerned about money? What would you do if you weren't afraid?
Wait, why? In retrospect now, why was that one of the questions?
Yeah, because of the way I was being. Remember, behind the scenes, I told you how I'm going to eat ramen noodles, scarcity. I never told them that.
I'm doing meaningful work, but I ain't going to make it.
Right.
I get that.
But the way I was being, it was probably obvious that I was like scared.
So that money was a source of fear, and he saw that. So wait. So he asked you if money. Wait, what was the question?
Yeah,
I'll get it eventually.
What would you do if you weren't so concerned about money?
All right. Okay. So basically, just trying to get through to. Come on, man.
Yeah. Get that out the way. And then what would you do if you weren't so afraid? And then the third one was, what would you do if you didn't care what other people thought?
Why was that one of them?
I think that it was a challenge to the thought of like, hey, I'm doing good work. This is what you do. You're in, you're in this work. But there was still a concern about looking good, probably. And I think that that's the work that we all look at. Like, where in my life am I trying to look good and not look bad? And where is when the ego allows you to like explore, like I'm trying to look good, and you keep with that, it keeps you away from kind of whatever's behind that, yeah. So
was he a coach?
He was a coach
at that time. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and and that's how it started, man. I got home to New York.
Okay.
I circled the date 3 months on the calendar where I was going to do my first event, speaking, coaching event called the Fatherhood Call to Action. I had no venue. I had nothing. I just had an idea, a thought that I came home from Ojai with. I picked the date because it was a date my children I knew would be in town to be able to go to it. That's the only reason I picked that date. So I had been going to some TEDx talks and meeting people who did TEDx talks. So I ran into a woman. She wrote a book called A Book About Fatherhood. She was on Oprah.
Oh, wow.
And I called her and I said, hey, I'm doing this event. It's going to be fun and I got no money for you, but are you willing to come speak? And she's like, Devon, it just so happened she lived in Omaha. I'm going to be in Connecticut that weekend. Not only will I come to speak, I got 2 other people who could come and speak at the event. So now my lineup's filling in. Yeah.
So that's some synchronicity there.
Synchronicity.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about here is the miraculous.
The miraculous.
Right?
Yeah.
So Carl Jung is my boy.
Yeah.
Like he coined that term, synchronicity.
Yeah.
Right? So one of his beliefs is that all of the universe is synchronized.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to get back to that stuff in a minute. All right. So, but you made a decision. So were you all in? Or were you just thinking, I'm going to give this a whirl? This coaching thing.
No. There was like an inner knowing of like, hey, this is what I'm going to go and do.
All right. So you decided you're going to have an event. Were you thinking that I'm going to do this because maybe I'll get some clients out of it? Like why?
I did this because it seemed like the next thing in front of me to do on my journey to create a speaking and coaching business. So out of that conversation, I was inspired when I came home and I said, I'm going to put an event together. That's what came to me. And I said, I'm going to bring people together in this event, and I'll be the keynote speaker at this event. So it was a combination of
That's cool.
It was a combination of me stepping into the world in this new role, but it was also in service. How do I bring light to fatherhood, the things that I love the most?
Yeah.
So synchronicity, she comes. I call this kid who did a young man who went to UMass, and I seen him in UMass do a TED Talk. He was a spoken word poet. I said, hey man, I know you're a college kid. I'll buy you a train ticket. You stay with me all weekend. I'll buy you all the food you want in the world. He said, Devon, I'm in. So now I got a spoken word
How
poet.
are you negotiating? That's cool.
So he comes. So now I got the lineup, and then I was the keynote. I invited family. I've invited friends.
Did you have any nervousness around this whole thing? Because you're making cool asks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is a big damn deal.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people aren't willing to ask for what they want. So you're like, all right, I don't have any money, but I'm going to pull this off.
Yeah.
And you're asking people anyway.
Yeah.
And you called a woman that was on Oprah.
Yeah.
She was on Oprah.
Yeah.
How'd you know her?
I met her after her TED Talk. I went up and introduced myself.
Oh,
Hey,
see, there's
good,
another
good.
thing. So you went up to her to introduce yourself.
Yeah, because what did I have to
So
lose?
hold on. So
I
this,
already
there's a
had.
theme.
Yeah.
What?
What did I have to lose? I was coming from nothing.
I like that, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
but what if, you could just leave it at, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
Right? So you ask. There's a takeaway right now,
Yeah.
okay, for everybody that's watching or listening, is get better at asking for what you want, right? Because that's already a common theme.
Yeah.
Right, you got this woman from Oprah to come to your event. I know I'm making this story longer, but I want it long.
Yeah.
So, because you went to see her at TEDx, right? And then afterwards you went and met her. You created that relationship.
100%.
And then...
And then she came. And then it just all fell into place.
Did you have any communications with her between when you saw her? Did you she give you a card or something, or like an email, or how did you stay in touch?
She gave me a card and her email. I got a copy of her book.
All right, so you knew how to reach out to her, and she remembered you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how we set it up.
She came and she brought more people to present.
Yeah, so now I had a lineup.
All right.
And it was good. And so I invited people I worked with. We filled the venue. The day before the venue, though, a friend of mine, had me in a nice, center venue. And he says, I got good news and bad news. What do you want? And I said, so by that time I had been doing some work. So I wasn't going bad news anymore. I wasn't scarce. I said, I want the good news. And he goes, what do you mean? Everybody wants the bad news first. I said, well, why are you asking me then? And he laughed. He said, well, the bad news is, I'm going to tell you anyway, we overbooked. This is the day before the event. And then we overbooked the event.
Meaning your space was not available?
Space was not available. I got everybody coming in from everywhere. Okay. And then he pauses for dramatic effect, and he's like, so we're going to upgrade you to the ballroom. So now the ballroom is like this amazing space that synchronicity in the universe just works out. And so we go in the space. It's a great event. People come, sign in. I connect with them. And we recorded it. I had a friend of mine just record the event. It was like, I don't know what we'll do with it. Maybe we'll have a website at some point. I don't have anything at this point. And I'm just starting my coaching career and speaking. And so we have the event. It's amazing. Fathers, mothers there, children. It was off the hook. It was so live. The woman who was on Oprah was like, this is one of the best events I've ever been to. And I was just figuring it out as I went along. And so it was great because I felt like, we were making a real impact on people. That was what it was about. And so a couple weeks later, I had another friend. We put a website together, put the video up, and somehow about 2 months later, somebody saw the video and invited me. They wanted me to do my own TEDx talk in Boca Raton. So they said, hey, we saw your video. Would you like to speak at TEDx? We'll fly you down. Come down there.
Wow.
And in that one, I went down to Boca Raton, spoke in front of about 15,000 people in an
What?
outdoor event. 12 to 15,000. It was an outdoor event.
Oh
in
my
an
God.
Amphitheater. So my second, I guess the Fatherhood Call to Action was my
Jeez,
first
dive in deep
professional
end.
gig.
Holy moly.
My second professional gig was like the TEDx talk.
Jeez.
So that's how that unfolded. And then during that time,
Wow.
you know, I'm just, yeah.
Well, what if somebody at this point says, you got lucky? What if like a little skeptic says, you got lucky?
Yeah. I don't know what luck is, really, to be honest, you know? And to me, it's like you put yourself in position. You know, the best definition of luck that I ever heard was when preparation meets opportunity. To me, that's luck, right? So I had been doing the work behind the scenes, like, you know, how I got where I'm at as a professional in coaching is similar to how I got into playing college basketball. I immersed myself in the sport. In basketball, what I did was I immersed in the sport. I studied the greats. And then I'd go out and I'd like kind of mimic their moves until I found my own game in that. And so when coaching came, I just looked, who out here are the great ones? And I'd study them. Byron Katie, Steve Chandler, Hardison, the mental toughness coach. Like, I want to hear all of them. And I just immerse myself in that and get on the court with it, you know, meaning practice it in my conversations, practice in who I'm being. And that as that happened, I started finding my own voice in the game. So I'm doing that, and I'm sitting at a coffee shop with a guy who comes to me as my coaching career. So at this time, I have one client. She's a teacher in LA, and she gets home at 7 o'clock at night. But I need reps, and I wanna get good at this thing, man.
She gets home at 7 o'clock at night.
In LA.
Pacific time.
So I'm serving her. We have calls every Monday. It's 10 o'clock Eastern till 11:30.
Wow.
Hour and a half. But I'm like, hey, how do I get better? This is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I had her, and then another client found me, and we were, you know, she was from UK, and that's how it started. And about
How did they find you?
by that time, I had been getting, you know, being a little bit more active in service. Like, so I was writing some things, doing some videos, sending it to people, following people, you know, sending them out of service. Hey, been thinking about you, or I noticed this, and they just connected to some of the work I was doing at the time. I was writing blogs, I was doing some videos. So that's how I got, you know, that's how it first started.
Okay.
And then I was sat in a coffee shop, and a friend of mine said, hey man, you getting into coaching, there's this Bible of coaching. And I said, a Bible of coaching? He said, yeah. I said, what is it? And they call it The Prosperous Coach. And I read that book, man. I remember being up at 3 a.m, like kind of like a drug addict, like just one more hit, just one more chapter, man. Because it was the first time I heard someone speak in the language. Like, this is why I actually got into social work, because I wanted to be in service. And this was the first time I saw a way in which I didn't have to sell, I didn't have to like market. It was like I could change people, be the vehicle in which I create the space for people to change and shift their lives, like mine was shifted in Ojai, and not do it from any manipulation. It was just from pure service. Because one thing, Chris, when I was in Ojai, when I got back, when I was on that plane, I knew something shifted. And I made a promise to myself on the plane. And the promise was, when I get the opportunity to create a space that was just created for me, that is what I owe, right? Whatever was poured into me in Ojai, when I get the opportunity, I'm gonna give that back. And that's how that's how my game changer events came to fruition, because it was a direct response to how impactful that opportunity in Ojai was. So I said, people are gonna have access to me, this is the way they do it. So I'm reading the Prosperous Coach book. And
Hold on, time out just
yeah.
for a second. I don't know if you covered this. when the guy initially invited you to go out to the event, the retreat in Ohio, you were on the fence.
Yeah, 4 days.
Was there a thing, like what tipped you to say, I'm going?
There wasn't anything. I woke up, took a shower, and then there was just an inner knowing. And that's some of the stuff we talked about of how I chose my coaches later on. There was an inner knowing of like, if you don't do this, you're going to regret this.
Oh, okay. All right, that matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't do this, right? So what's on the other side of this unquestioned belief of fear or scarcity? Like if you slow it down and say like, now we're going into the land of like what I don't know, I don't even know. So can I be comfortable in that, even though I don't know what the hell it's gonna look like?
That's huge.
Yeah. So and lean into that.
Right, because it'd be like a sliding doors kind of thing. Would be interesting to know, like, had you not gone.
Yeah. Right.
Whatever. All right. So anyway.
So I read the book. Now I'm stalking Steve Chandler, and I'm
It is the best book in the world for coaches.
possibly.
Starting him. Yeah.
Stalking him, and I'm getting all his free stuff. Like whatever, they got this, I got the video, I got this, and finally I come across he has a coaching school. And I think it's at the time maybe $10,000. I'm like, what? I never invested this much money in. But I see, I'm a New Yorker, man. I'm like, there's an opportunity here. He's giving a free coaching session, or a gifted coaching session for anyone interested in the school. So I said, oh, it's the deal. I'll just get the coaching session from they used to call him at the time Godfather Coaching, and
Used to.
yeah, he's retired that name. Yeah. We no longer do that.
No.
Yeah, he's retired it. It's a reinvention. We'll go on that another time. Man. You gotta respect the game, man.
Yeah. I didn't. Okay. I didn't know that was
And yeah, man. And so I got a call on the calendar with him, and it was amazing. He was just down to earth. He was just telling me about his story. It wasn't like, a lot of people in coaching are like, we're gonna have a powerful conversation, and we're gonna, instead of like normalizing the miraculous. And I heard in him some miraculous things that would normalize, and what it allowed me to do was hang up the phone and say, just maybe, if it could happen, if this guy, he wrote 35 books. He's like got the best coaching book. He normalized the miraculous in which I could see me and him. And I hung up the phone and just said, maybe if it could work for him, this thing could really work for me. And so at that point, I had a couple dollars over lunch money in the bank. Most people would go to their bank, look for loans. I said, I'm going to go to the school. I didn't look. It was 7 o'clock at night. Banks were closed. I just went online, Googled like loans. I didn't even know about rates at the time. Like, what is better rates? I just picked a loan. Took a $15,000 loan. Called them the next day and said, I am paying for the school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some commitment right there.
It was a commitment. I knew. And
what did you know?
I knew that thing, that gnawing feeling that I've felt over the years, that there's something.
Knowing. Yeah.
Feeling that there was something, like I wasn't playing my best game out here in the world. There was an impact. There was this was the opportunity to bring that to life.
So that $15,000 loan was like a no-brainer to you then?
No, it was a little scary. It was like,
okay.
Yeah, it was like, but it was a little scary, and there was no hesitancy because I knew, like, what's the alternative? If I do what I always did, I'm gonna get what I always got.
So the school, the fee, the tuition for the coaching school was $10,000.
Yeah.
Why did you get 15?
Because I was like, I could use another $5,000. Well, actually, that was partly it, but the other part of it was there was I was in the divorce.
Oh, okay.
So I still had to pay off my divorce lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm getting the work from Steve Chandler. He's, Steve, once you sign up, you're getting books at your door, you got videos, and I'm immersing myself, and I'm slowly, meeting with people, inviting people. And I'm in the doctor's office I run into the doctor who did surgery on my shoulder. And now I'm in it. This is like 2 months before, this is the month before the first live session in the coaching school.
Okay.
At the ACS, right?
Yeah.
So we're in the doctor's office and she's like, hey, I think I need a coach. Do you know one? And I'm like Blake Shelton, like, hello, like, you know. And she like laughs at me. Like not laughs with me, like laughs at me. She's like, Devin, come on, you're my client. You do that fatherhood stuff. And for a moment, I'm like, yeah, maybe she. But I stay with her and I said, well, just have a couple conversations. So, you know, it's just because I'm immersed in the work, like just be of service. I invite her to a conversation. We have a couple conversations. So the third conversation, I know she's gonna want to work with me. So I'm in the mirror. I'm in the mirror the night before. I never charged any fees. Like nobody's ever worked with me for years. So I'm in the mirror. 50K, 50K, 50K. I could pay off the loan. I could, you know, 50K. So we
50K for what?
For the year.
For a year.
For the year.
That's where you started?
That's what my thought was to start.
So good.
So we get to the park and she says, all right, what does it take to work with you? And I'm like, 50K. 20K. and that's not, so it's all good. Like it's still more, but she does something like this. She's like, oh. And she reaches in her pocketbook and just pulls out a check.
And you're like, wait a minute.
And I'm like,
is it 20?
Yeah.
Now,
this is the thing. It sounds like it's about the money right now, but listen, she gives me the check. At the time, I am now thinking that the universe is going to somehow suck this check out of my pocket. So I have my hand on the check as I'm skipping down New York City looking crazy. People look at me like, why is this guy so happy skipping with his hand? Because I'm thinking the check is going to blow away.
Right.
I get to the bank. I don't go to the teller because I'm thinking the teller's going to tell me something's wrong with the check. So I'm on the ATM forgetting my password, which is like which is like my birth date or something. Yeah. And I'm like 20 minutes. And then finally I put the check in and something miraculous happens. I don't feel any different.
What do you mean?
Check went in. Mm-hmm. You know, you think money. What came up was, this is what you do. You serve people. And the money is just a reflection of your service. It means nothing.
Right.
Sounds miraculous. Oh, your first client, 50, 20. No, that's just normal now. This is normal. And I still work with that client to this day, 7 years later. Wow. She's still my client.
Oh, that's cool.
She's created amazing things. She went from 2...
Does she know this story?
Yeah, she knows it. So she had 2 locations. She has like 13 locations through New York. She's top.
Did you ever ask her, or did she ever just bring it up, say, if you had said 50?
No. I should follow up on it. Maybe I'll send her this video. And, but yeah, and that was.
She would have told you to take a hike.
Yeah, and to me, the story, like as we talk about normalizing the miraculous, there's synchronicity, there's stuff that is pretty miraculous that happens, these opportunities we have in our life, but we're kind of conditioned to think they're like few and far between. Yeah. But they're actually a daily thing if we see them for what they are.
Well, it's Einstein, right, who said there's only 2 ways to look at life, and one is as if nothing is a miracle, the other is as if everything is.
Everything. And the beauty about this work is it's hard to really be a coach that makes a difference in people's lives and shifts, and without you, the growth that you personally have. Like this profession has shifted everything in who I'm being. So that difficult divorce, for instance, end up being like the best ex-husband ever was created from this work. And my ex-wife and I now are great friends. And so it's not only the work that we do outwardly, it's really who we're being, who we're becoming on the process of growing our practice. So it's like USM, they call it goal line and soul line, right? It's like the achievement line. USM, University of Santa Monica is like, you know, the goal line.
The school, wait, what's the program is the...
spiritual psychology. I know people who've gone there, and one of the things I loved is this distinction of goal line, soul line. Of like, goal line is like the game of life. It's like achievement. And we do that. We throw a dart on the ball. I want to create this. I want to achieve this. That's great. But what's most important, or just as important, is soul line. Who am I becoming on the process of achievement? So the 20K no longer meant anything that it meant 6 months ago. The 100K, the whatever the money is, who I became by the time I get there is not the person I started with. I've evolved.
How long ago was that? That $20,000 check?
2013? No, 20.
Less than 10 years.
Yes, 14, 16,
How
7
different
years.
is your life now, and how different are you than from 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's different's an interesting word.
Okay.
Because different, better reminds me of better and different from what? From the past, right? From that person. And what's been cool over the last few years is I no longer was adding or subtracting from the person from the past. It was kind of just when things dropped away, I was stepping into who I always was, right? So for me, that's been the evolution. Like the person you see here has always been here. It's just these things were in the way of it shining and being out there in the world. My life is beyond anything I could have imagined. If I wrote down something in 2013, this is what I want my life, I would have been cheating myself. Because of, one, the beautiful relationships I have in my life. People like, you're my man. Like I'm in Arizona chilling in the captain's quarters, and to me, relationships are the biggest currency in the world. So when I talk about wealth and abundance, yeah, the paychecks are good and the bank account's nice, but it's really the relationships. And my life is full with such meaningful relationships. Coaching practice is full, wait lists, get to speak, wrote a book. Things are nice, man. And and all that stuff is cool. The outward stuff is cool. But what's the most rewarding is who I am being on a daily basis. Who I'm being with my children, who I'm being with my friends, who I'm being with my clients, and the place I'm coming from. That's everything.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when you drop kind of like, remember I said I was in the scarcity, fearful mindset, like way of being. Like and like you said, how did he know to ask that question? It was not in what I was doing. It just kind of leaked out everywhere I was being. So now, there's no illusion to who I am and my impact I can make, not only in my world, but on the world of those around me. So there's a lot of courage, meaning fear. It's not like somebody walks around, there's never fear. I don't really have any fear, but if something pops up, I still do it afraid, right? And coming from love, here's another New York word. It's like the saucer, right? SAWCAA, and the saucer and the cup. And to me, it's like when you eliminate and when you fill your cup with kind of who you are, right? A way of being that is love, that is generous, that is of service, there eventually becomes an overflow on the cup onto the saucer. So all of this is all good. All this success is great, but it means nothing if it's not impacting the people around me. And to me, that's the most rewarding feeling, that it started out of like what I wanted to do, what I wanted to create, and what it morphed into is I am you, you am I, you are me, and the bigger impact I make, the more I can help those around me. So that's my biggest thing.
I love that. It reminds, Chandler, right? Steve Chandler, that your bank account is a direct reflection of your level of service. You mentioned that earlier, actually, right? And that's a big one. I'll be interested in hearing from people who have watched or listened to this episode who aren't in the coaching industry, like the relevance of that, right? To them. in their lives.
Yeah, like I have clients. I mean, most of my clients aren't coaches. Right? Aren't coaches. I only keep a certain amount, a percentage of my practice for coaches. Right. That's it. And then I work with leaders, athletes, organizations. That's what I do. So I keep a certain percent because I love giving back what was given me, and there's a certain level of coaches that I love to like create with. But the leaders out here, it's I'm not gonna work with somebody who's just about the money. That's just I get to choose who I work with. So there has to be.
That's huge, by the way.
Yeah.
I get to choose who I work with.
Yeah.
For coaches.
So I have leaders out, in the world who are pretty well known or high up in their organizations and doing cool stuff in the world, that it's more than just the money. The money's all good. It's a reflection of the service you give in the world, but what's the impact of that? So I think that it translates, it's outside of the coaching world. It's like, who do you want to be, right? Like everyone has the tell me what to do. Tell me the 7-step method. Just tell me what to do. Then I'll have what I want. Then I can be blah.
And that's backwards.
It's backwards, right? Tell me, or if I just have the right wife or husband, then I'll do the right thing. Then we'll be happy. So it's either a do, have, be, or like in the 70s, a have, a do, be, right? So, but why wait?
Well,
why wait? Like every difficult time in my life, a year later or so, I look back, and in the time, I'm like, divorce is difficult. And then I look back and say, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And my question is then, why wait? Why do I have to wait a year? I can be happy now. I can be understanding that this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me now. I don't need to wait. So it's a be, do, have proposition.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Removing the time that we've been conditioned to put between us and what we want, or how we want to be, or who we want to be, what we want to have, all that. Be it now.
Be it now. I was a best-selling author before I even wrote a book. People asked me what I did. I wrote. I'm an author. I was writing blogs that I wasn't even checking or editing. And one client was a double major in English. She's like, Devon, you changed my life. She's like buttering me up. And I'm like, why are you buttering me up? She's like, well, if you want to run the blogs by me. I was like, oh, you're telling me my writing's no good, right? Yeah.
I need to learn how to use a comma and a semicolon.
Yeah, like send her the stuff to, because I was just writing to write. But even then I was being an author. People ask me, what do you do? I write. And I stepped into that way of being. It's so.
That's a huge takeaway from this conversation for people.
Yeah.
That's huge, really. Is not waiting for anything, right? Not waiting until your book is a bestseller.
Right.
To be the best-selling author.
Correct.
Not waiting until your bank account has a certain number of dollars in it before you are a success or financially successful.
Yep.
Not waiting until, right, you have a full card as a coach, right, of clients.
Yeah.
To be the thriving coach.
Right. That's right now.
All right. Let me play a little devil's advocate.
Yeah.
On that. Okay. That would have been hard, I think, for you to communicate to me when I was like 30,000 deep in credit card debt. Mm-hmm. It's like if you had just said to me, well, it's cool, man. Just like who aren't you being? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm not being wealthy. Like I'm in debt. I don't know where my clients are going to come from, and all this fear shit.
Yeah.
So.
All
right. So let's imagine for a second that you're speaking to someone in the audience here, okay, who loves what you're saying, but is like, oh man, yeah, like that has this in the questions, maybe in the scarcity, in the fear, and loves the way this sounds.
Yeah.
But maybe doesn't know exactly how to apply what you're saying about be.
Yeah. What's the practical application?
Thank you.
So you have to get for yourself, for me, of like it by starting who you're being. It's when you're aligning yourself like with your head and your heart. So like we won't get into any quantum physics, right? But there is like this quantum field. This is where The Secret went wrong, right? Where they had the book The Secret, where they just said if you think things and you think positive, but what they didn't realize was it's actually an alignment of not only, you know, your cortex, right, but your heart. So like you literally can shift your chemistry. Your body doesn't know whether I have $1 million in the bank or not.
Yeah, keep going.
Right? So there's like the quantum field, it's already there and you have access to it. You just have to know the way of being. So for instance, I don't have, like I'm 30,000 in debt is similar to like when I was going through a divorce and every time I picked up my son, there seemed to be an argument. I chose at one point to say, you know what I'm gonna be? I am going to be the best ex-husband ever. So when I went to the house, the lens, the listening in which I was connecting with my ex-wife was no longer this old type of listening. It was a listening from the way of being of the best ex-husband ever. So when I get a credit card delinquency notice and I'm 30,000 in debt, how am I hearing that? How am I relating to that? Am I relating it to from an old scarce, or my way of being is this is just something to pay off on my way to my million? There's a connectedness of your brain and your heart. Your body does not know the difference. So it's like a hack a little bit, and it's real, right? So let me. Yeah.
Are you gonna expand on that? Because what you it's a hack and it's real.
Yeah.
Okay, because like you know what phrase I don't like? Fake it till you make it.
No, it's not that.
Well, you know why I don't like
Yeah.
it? I don't know if it's the same.
Go ahead.
We've never talked about this. Because I don't think there's value in faking it.
There's no fake.
Because there's no faking. Just be.
Just be. That's what we're talking about.
And then you'll make it. Then you make whatever it is.
Just be, step into it. So on the practical sense, when I'm being, the doing, because life responds to action. So you ever had like, you ever been around and you're like, you know, I haven't heard from my friend from college for a while, and like, you know, you're thinking about him a lot. All of a sudden the phone rings.
Of course.
Right?
We all have that.
We've all had that, right? Or you've ever been like, hey man, you know, I am gonna be someone who, like, in creation of money, or I am no longer gonna be in scarcity, and all of a sudden you start seeing opportunities that weren't there before. They were always there, but you were so shut down that you weren't giving yourself access to that field.
Yes.
So that quantum field
Yes.
is like the old Rumi quote, when Rumi used to say, there's a field out there beyond wrongdoing and right doing. There's a field, I'll meet you there. To me, he's talking about the quantum field. When I get all the limiting beliefs of right, wrong, good, bad out of the way, there's an access. There's an access. So my way of being gives me access to something beyond what I see right now.
I love the Queen's accent too that you give to Rumi.
Yeah, like
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah,
I
like that. That's
I just
cool.
want to listen to you read Rumi.
Now, let me just go to the practical. For the guy in the audience,
Yes.
instead of figuring out the 3-step things, because you can go to Dave Ramsey and he can give you some steps, but how come a lot of people, even with the steps, fall short, right? This is how you get out of debt. You go to Dave, you know, you go to different people to give you the steps.
Because one of the steps isn't who you're being.
The first step is who you're being. And when you are being, when you're stepping into who you're being, like I am being the greatest father for my children. I am being the most impactful coach for the world, right? So then the doing becomes practical and right in your face.
Dude, this is so huge.
Right? Thank you.
Really. I mean, for everybody, I hope everyone gets this point. I mean, I feel like this is the takeaway.
Yeah. So.
And that is normalizing the miraculous.
It's right. So my being, what it really does is it gets me present to the only time we ever have in life, which is now. So we have Many times people's like, I don't have all the time in the world. You actually have all the time in the world because you have access to the most unlimited time, which is now. That's it. Wow. So it's now, followed by now, followed by now.
Like your clock.
Like my clock, right? My clock. I have one clock at home. It always says now. So if I'm being in the now and I'm present, the doing will be obvious, the next thing. So I don't need to know the second, third, fourth step. Actually, I think the second step is always the killer of the first step. So because if I'm planning the second step or my alternative step, then I'm not being who I need to be
in the first.
That's
cool. I love that.
So for me, it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
Right.
The second step is the killer of the first step.
It's the killer of the first step.
So I just need to be the first step.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you're going around, it's not like, hey, I'm being. No. Like you have to, it's a way of being. When my ex-wife, and I was saying, I'm going to be the best ex-husband ever, and she would say something she always says, the way of being and the way of listening was, what would the best ex-husband ever say? What would the best ex-husband do? And so now, because I was being that, the doing, the questions of what to do was right there in front of me. And I would do that thing. And I would continue to show up. And she would keep doing what she was doing. And about 9-10 months later, she said, you want to have a conversation? We have a conversation. Never at one point, Chris, did I say, I am doing this personal development work and I'm being the best ex-husband. I never said those words. But a little shortly after that, we're out. And she says to her friend, she said, I want to introduce you to somebody. And she says, this right here is the best ex-husband ever.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. One more thing. About 2 years ago, my doctor calls me. And this is Normalizing the Miraculous and the Way of Being. And he says, got good news. I see this thing in your gallbladder. We're going to send you to the gallbladder guy. So we go to the gallbladder guy. He calls me back and says, well, good news is there's nothing in the gallbladder. We see this thing in your kidney. So we're going to send you to the kidney guy. So we go to the kidney guy, and he's like this nerdy like dude with a bow tie, you know. But, you know, he's a nerdy dude, but you know those doctors that they got the nerdy swag? So he walks in and he's like nerdy with the bow tie, but he's like got a swag. And I'm like, okay. If something's wrong, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I want this guy. So he sits down like this, real cool. And he's like, hey, Devon, what are a few ways I can help you? I said, Doc, I'm a coach. There's nothing better than great questions. That's a great question. So he laughs. He says, well, I said, 2 ways you can help me. I actually thought about this. The first way is you tell me nothing wrong with my kidney. I go on my way. I'll mail you a signed copy of my book.
That's cool.
Now, who was I being in there? I went to a doctor's appointment. They say something's up. I could have chose to be fearful. I could have chose to be like, hey, just tell me what it is. No. I chose to be powerful in that conversation. Not a victim, an owner of everything that I was doing in this conversation with him. It was a choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Look, I have a call right outside. Your father's in the hospital. I can feel sad that my father's in the hospital. What people think is how you feel needs to leak into who you're being. No. How you feel? So I feel sad, right? I walk into this and now all of a sudden I think I got to be sad for the interview. No, it's a choice. My daughter calls me, says, Dad, how you feeling? I said, I'm a little angry at your brother. Do you want me to operate with you on how I'm feeling or who I'm being? She always picks being. Right?
That's pretty great to give that choice to your daughter. That's awesome communication.
Yeah.
That's cool.
She laughs. She's like, I'll take being.
Yeah. Because she
know.
gets what that means even.
Yeah. So I'm in the doctor.
So that's another, dude, you're dropping bombs right now.
Well,
you're dropping
we had to
bombs
warm
right
up,
now.
bro. We had to warm up.
Yeah.
So you want to slow down? Or
yes, please.
Okay.
Because that's like, so what you said struck me right there, all right? Which is you don't have to let how you're feeling leak into who you're being.
Yeah. Being's a choice. Like, look, you go to a funeral, there's 2 sisters, right? Their brother dies. Now, neither of how they react is right or wrong. It's a choice of being. One, booger snot's coming, they're yelling, they got a carrier out, oh, it's the worst thing in the world. The other is like, celebration of life. It's beautiful. It's the best thing that could ever happen. He's peaceful now. They're both feeling sad, but there's a choice in who they're being.
Wow. Wow. That's big.
That's big.
That's
See, and
big.
most
That's freedom, man.
That's freedom.
Like, that's so liberating just hearing you say that.
Yeah, like, how long have we operated in this world thinking that how we feel needs to leak into who we're being? That we have no choice. It's a choice.
Yeah.
So I'm in the doctor's office with a choice.
Yes.
With a choice.
Yes.
And he says, he says, what's the second option? I said, well, you tell me something's wrong with my kidney. Well, you tell me how you're going to help me, and I'll bring you a signed copy of the book.
Oh, that's so great. That's really great.
And he's laughing. I'm laughing. And he says, well, it's going to be the second thing. The thing we see is what we call cancer.
That's how he said it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, you have a tumor and it's cancerous. I said, okay, we got to get it out. Now, I'm present now. I got to be honest, there's no fear. I'm present in the moment, right? And I'm like, all right, what do we got to do? We got to get it on the calendar. Let's get it on the calendar. Now, the practice is, now I want, just so the listeners, some people will drop out of that. That's fine. I just had more practice at this time. Now, were there times when I left the office where there was some suffering? Yeah. And what I realized was my only suffering in my life only comes when I'm either in a future or a past. So my only suffering with this diagnosis was when I got into a future. Oh my God, I die, my kids. Future, suffering. So when I got there, I'd acknowledge it and then just get back to being in the present. Is there anything wrong right now? Nothing. There's nothing. But this is all good. I got a doctor's appointment coming up. So the way of being was a practice of being present. So I'm at doing an event a week or two later with a colleague, and she's on the phone, and I hear these words. She just puts two words together called something, nothing. I literally leave the dinner conversation and say, I got to go. I'll be back. I call my doctor because I know that our language, our words literally create our world. Like, I created difficult divorce by my listening and by my language. I created best ex-husband ever by my language and my way of being. So I call the doc and I say, Doc, this thing you guys are calling cancer, I need you to get your team around, and I have a request. Are you open to my request? And he says, yeah, I'm open. What's the request? I said, well, I want you to tell your team when it comes to my thing that we're no longer calling that cancer. We're calling this a something nothing. He said, what are you talking about? I said, listen, I'll tell you later, but language creates my world. I go by a house, it says for sale. I have a certain relationship to that house. I go to the same house. This is how powerful language is. Next week it says sold. It's a whole different relationship to that house. 5 men in front of me. Why are you a Chris? I wouldn't know you're a Chris. You're a Chris because someone gave language and enough people agreed that you're a Chris. Like, that's the power. So I call him. I said, we're going to call it something nothing. Can you do that? He's like, I was like, can you do that? He said, you know what? We're going to do that. When it comes to you, I'll tell anyone working on our team, when it comes to this, it's a something nothing. I brought my children together, said, hey, Dad got this thing. It's called a something nothing. I said, all right, we're going to get through it. So who I was being was someone who was still having fun, present, loving, and not being someone who, the times when I felt a little worried or in the future, it didn't leak into who I was being. I wasn't doom and gloom. I changed,
Yeah.
yeah. For a month, I only watched HGTV. They were like, "Stop working. Don't watch stuff like how to get away with murder. Like everything, like upgrade your vibration, right?" So I'm having fun with this whole thing, and we go, and I have some people who's checking in on me, and I had to shorten the circle to make sure I didn't want anybody on low frequency coming in, and so when people would call, I said, "Hey, this thing is only a something nothing. It's all good." Went to the surgery. They got it out. Mentally, spiritually, I was great. Physically, it kicked my butt a little bit. And I remember the guy next door in a wheelchair coming because it was like a celebration. And he came in and was like, "Who are you? Are you like a famous guy? Like, why are you guys have been partying since?" It's like, "Oh, man, something, nothing." So 3 weeks later, the doctor calls me. And the doctor says, "Devon, I got good news." He said, "We usually have you come 3 months, 6 months, and then you'll do 6 in a year. You don't have to come for another year." I said, "What?" He said, "Cancer's totally gone." No, he said, "The something nothing's totally gone." And he said, "But we knew, the doctors knew you were going to be okay." I said, "Doc, I'm around a lot of spiritual people. That don't sound Western medicine. That sounds like, what are you talking about? Like you knew I was going to be okay." And he said, this was his words, "There was something about the way you were being with this."
Wow.
He didn't say what I did. He said, "What you're being." And to me, that's a choice. Only, always.
Amen to that. That feels like a perfect place to stop. But before we do, one last thing. I want you to have everyone know about your game changer experience. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the game changer, like I said, that was my promise when I left Ojai, that he created this space and to transform or shift kind of my life. And I said, even though I work in organizations, I wanted to have a weekend that was accessible, that people can actually still access, that they didn't have to, bleed their bank account to go, but it would give them access to really transform their life. And the weekend is extraordinary. We do it in LA, New York. We're going to be doing it in London.
You're going to be doing one in London?
Yeah. And it's my annual thing. We do it, a couple times a year. And it's extraordinary, man. We talk about in your life, day one is really about getting clear on where you've been in the stands in your life. Like in the stands versus on the court.
Okay.
In the stands is like where the fans are, where short for fanatics. Observing life. Life is a concept. Judging the people on the court. Judging yourself. It's a lot of that when you're a fan, like you're in the stands. So day one, we get clear on like where are you in the stands in your life? Where have you been, this sports analogy, where have you been playing not to lose? So what happens when you play not to lose and you're a quarterback?
You're focused on what not to do, which means your attention is all on that, and you create that which you hope to avoid. So
day one, we clear that. Day two, they're creating like, what's the winning? Like, what would winning be? So then we get clear, and it's kind of like a weekend in which I don't try to get people anywhere. I get them back to nothing, to a blank slate. So my job is not to add on like a shaky foundation. My job is to clear the things out of to get you to a blank canvas. Because what most people do is they have a canvas with couple lines from the past and they say, create a new masterpiece. But can you create a new masterpiece if you have lines on the canvas from the past? No, you just be adding to the old. So our job in day one, too, is we actually get clear, we get back to nothing. Because from nothing, what can you create?
Everything.
So day three, we realize it's not even winning, it's not even losing, we're just playing for the love of the game. And day three is like the creation. I had people come in there. A guy was going to fire this guy who worked with him in a leadership position. By Monday, he created him as his succession plan and up-leveled his thing. I had a guy who lost his leg in a car accident and in the weekend created himself, and now he's like one of the go-to speakers in the amputee community, like the guy. I had a woman who was in the midst of a divorce. And recreated her relationship. I still talk to her now, 6 years later from the first Game Changer, doing amazing. like it's a beautiful, and whether big, small, you know, it's just an amazing event.
Where do people go to learn about it?
Yeah, just check me out. My name, devonbandison.com. And, you know, it's just a pleasure being in the captain's quarters, man.
Dude, well, I just got to tell you, man, I love having you here. But more than that is I love you. I love our friendship. I'm proud as hell of you and proud to have you as such a close friend. So I appreciate you. I mean, your growth, I've told several people this in the last week. You come up a lot. You're kind of a big deal. Your growth trajectory is like that.
Thank you, man.
You are so committed to service, and you walk your talk, dude. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks for this.
Appreciate you. Peace.